Welcome back to Distilled, where we distill the latest insights, intelligence, and innovation from across the B2B space. Today, we are diving into the most expensive line item on any B2B budget, and that is change. Joining me today is Kristen Talley. She is a strategist first and an AI enablement specialist. Thank you for making the time to chat to us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Steve.
So before we dive into the strategy, I want to hear about what it's like in the trenches right now. What themes are you seeing? What challenges are you hearing? And what are the big opportunities for 2026?
Yeah, I would say it's a bit like a pressure cooker where there's growing targets, there's a growing need for sellers to overperform, for organizations to overperform with revenue growth. And there's a lot of talk about the tool set that can be used to enable that growth. What I'm seeing is a skill gap.
Right.
And the focus on the actual human capital within an organization is severely lacking, as well as fully understanding what it means to be ready to use AI, what it means to be ready to actually invest in that type of level of tech. The focus that I'm seeing on really successful companies is on transformation, is on change and how to manage where you are today and where you want to be, but looking at all different factors, not just the tools that you have and the automation that you have. You need to be thinking about the actual people and the organization that you have and how you're going to move them forward in a way that empowers and drives the growth that you actually need to see.
Right. And is there one fundamental misconception that you're consistently seeing?
Yeah, I would say that the fundamental gap is that you can throw money at a problem.
Right.
And something like AI, it's like the advent of the internet, really. It's a massive change in how we can do our jobs, how business is run. And so thinking about it as something that you can just buy and then deploy without the use of humans, without the use of people who understand your culture, who have a vested interest in your organization's success. It doesn't work that way. It's a true transformation where I'm seeing people who are successful come in and say, I need to figure out where I'm at right now, and I need to know what I need to do to get to the growth targets that I have.
From what I'm understanding is you're talking about behavior change within organizations.
Yeah, fundamentally what I'm talking about is change management, right? Which involves managing behaviors, it involves managing skill sets and thinking about the human capital that you have as well as the tool set that you have. Where I'm seeing some complication is over-indexing on one area.
Right.
So finding that right balance and simplifying your business is the best way to get to that more complicated future, that more automated future. It comes from a more simple current space.
Right. So I'm imagining this is really thinking about both the planning and the execution. So understanding that North Star where you want to get to, but how you're going to get there. And, you're talking at the beginning, and it must really kill you as a strategist when you walk into an organization and they don't have a plan, but they're very clear on where they want to get to with the assumption that AI is going to get them there without the humans within the organization on board, the plan that's in place and the training to support the teams.
If your sales strategy is broken, automating it isn't going to help.
So you're going to automate something that's already broken.
Yes.
So it's going to keep breaking exponentially.
Right. You're just going to make it worse. And you will have great turnover. You will have issues with pipeline growth. You will have issues with sales growth. And you'll be in a situation that is harder to fix. So my recommendation is to think about the actual strategy of readying yourself for AI, for this next wave, this next advent of business. Think about how you're doing that and invest in that before you move on to the actual tools or the systems.
So at Distillery, we're seeing a real blurring of the lines between the sales function, the marketing function, and enablement.
Mm-hmm.
Where, from your point of view, are the friction points? Where's the pipeline getting stuck?
Yeah, what I'm often seeing is that it's a misalignment of goals. So the marketing team is tasked with building out lead lists, getting volume, and the sales team is taking that volume and not seeing the quality that they need to actually drive pipeline. So you get the leads in, quality isn't there, pipeline suffers, and revenue doesn't grow. Ultimately, both groups are unhappy with that. So your team is unhappy, which is the worst place to be.
Yep.
And that alignment needs to happen at the executive level. Having a unified strategy, having a clear goal of what everyone is driving towards, and aligning your leadership throughout the organization is really the only way you can drive that alignment. So having the marketing leader and the sales leader understand each other and have systems and processes that are connected effectively, and quality control on all ends. That communication, that alignment, that human alignment needs to be there in order to actually see the pipeline success.
So then talk to me about the enablement piece.
Yeah, so the way that I'm seeing enablement play into this is not super effectively in a lot of instances, because you've got the marketing leader and the sales leader, and they both want different things for their teams. And so enablement is somewhat stuck in the middle with trying to play almost referee at times of how do I get these teams to effectively work together. The problem needs to be solved earlier on. It needs to be solved when you're talking about that full purpose. What are your revenue goals? Only then can enablement actually be able to build the right learning strategy, the right landing strategy for the process, for the actual workflow that your sellers and your marketers need to be following. So fixing it at the top and then having the enablement leaders integrated into that so that the enablement can actually start at the executive level. It can be translated down into the actual sellers and the marketers. And so they feel like they're on the same team. And that is ultimately what needs to happen, is the marketing team and the sales team need to be working in tandem. And enablement can help actually enable that. Enablement is there to not play referee. It is there to ensure everybody has the right skills to drive that purpose forward.
So then in terms of driving that purpose forward, where does creativity play a role? At Distillery, we're about creativity made to measure,
Mm.
where true creativity can really drive behavior change. And how do you inject creativity into something that is truly rigid, like enablement,
Yeah.
or traditionally rigid,
Yeah.
like enablement?
And I'm seeing a lot of really awesome innovation in terms of how you can use creativity. And ultimately, I think it translates to curiosity.
Right.
How you can approach your job within marketing, within sales, as a curious person first. You are curious about what the customer problems are that you're looking to solve. You're curious about how you can solve those. It's not about having a ready-made, off the shelf sort of approach. It's thinking about the problem itself and how do I get to any type of a solution that feels really custom to that problem. Everybody's issues that they're encountering right now are going to be different. And so the coolest thing about what's happening with technology is that if you understand how to approach it with curiosity, with creativity, and play with it in a way that actually helps you solve problems in a more customized, more personalized manner, then you're miles ahead right now.
Mhm.
However, that won't be the case forever, but you're positioning yourself as a stronger seller, a stronger marketer in the next phase of business. What I'm seeing in sales in particular is it's a high stress environment. Their goals never go away. They always grow, especially if you achieve. So what I experienced as a seller was an extreme anxiety around knowing my pitch, knowing how to approach a customer, how to have my sales skills grow in an environment that was okay to fail. And I don't think I ever really found that. Been a while. But I don't think I ever really found the space where I could practice other than in front of my mirror. And so the coolest thing about, or not the coolest, but one of the cool things about technology right now is that it's creating these safe spaces for sellers, for business people to build their skills using AI, using tools that they can train on their customer personas. They can train on their manager personas, and they can function verbally, written, etc., in a way that helps them improve.
Mhm.
And the AI can function as a teacher, it can function as a coach, but you need to know the questions to ask. You need to know the prompts to give that AI. Otherwise, you're just playing with a tool that doesn't necessarily solve your problems. But those spaces that you can create through your curiosity and through being, experimenting, that's where your skill development is really going to happen. And that's where you'll get that next level of innovation with your sales teams, that next level of skills development.
So creativity and curiosity, they go hand in hand. And at Distillery, blending creativity in the advocacy space can be so incredibly powerful. Where within an organization, if you're looking to increase adoption with technology, for example, finding those real advocates within the organization. Ironically, finding those advocates through human research, through those deep dive discussions, and creating much more scrappy styles of content that are much more sort of UGC focused, really can help move the needle. Humans love to connect with other humans, drive that human emotional appeal, and also be quite real. What's working, what's not
Yeah.
working, and really connect those dots. I would love to hear more about your AI assessment program.
Yeah. So what I find is that I have executives, come to me and ask, okay, well, how do I get my team AI ready? And what I want to start with is not how do I get my team ready, but how ready are you? How ready is your whole organization to actually adopt a brand new way of working? And so that starts off with assessing where you're at right now. How is your data hygiene? What kinds of misalignment exists in your team? Are there silos? Do managers actually talk to each other? Do you share best practices already? Or is that a gap? So understanding where that sits right now is what the assessment is all about. That's what having a discovery is all about. Is it's us trying to figure out where are things broken in your business,
Uh-huh.
in your sales flow, and what do we need to fix with a strategy first before we talk about any kind of tool. And you mentioned the champion and having champions. And I think what you can create by starting from a point of strategy is you can create champions across all of your different teams. You don't need to have a department that is focused on AI. That's actually the worst case scenario, right? You need to have everybody who is AI powered. Everybody understands how to use these tools and how to do their job with these tools and adapt to a new way of working. So they bring that creativity, they bring that curiosity to their job.
Uh-huh.
It's no longer a button pusher. You are now actually managing a new source of growth. So that's why it's so important to start from, am I AI ready? Or is my team actually much further along? And are my systems and processes and tech stack ready to go? Oftentimes I'm finding no, that they're not ready yet. And that's okay. That's actually a great scenario to be in because you can fix those things. And I want to stress the importance of simplicity. So keeping it as simple as possible and limiting the number of learning management systems you have, for example, limiting the content management that you have across your organization, having a very clear approach to how you're managing data, CRM systems, LMSs, CMSs, etc. All of those different things need to be aligned in order to effectively get your team in an AI-powered state.
So building on that, Kristen, I'd love to know from your point of view, where do you think enablement leaders should really directing their spend?
Yeah, so I'm seeing a particular gap at the sales management level. And so having sales managers that are not only good at driving revenue, but also better at coaching. They're ultimately there to help coach their teams and make sure that their teams are successful. And I think that gets lost because oftentimes sales managers are promoted from the sales floor. They're highly effective sellers with no formal manager training or fast, quick, on the floor training. So they're often, learning on the job. And what you need in a AI-powered workforce is really effective coaches. They understand the nuances, and they have a curiosity around how their AI and their sellers can blend together to have a really effective sales machine. And so investing in sales management support, sales management training, skills, if it's tech, if it's tools, but they really need the skills. They really need to be able to be that effective coach and play in that space.
So when you walk into a room, what are you driving? What are you enabling? How are you empowering these organizations to solve these challenges?
Often we're brought in for a scaling or growth that needs to happen. But what we're really handling is transformation and change. And we're there to function as an advisor and a strategist, but also a doer. We're there to help you plan and also execute. So this is not about building a framework or giving you advice only. It is also about taking that plan and implementing, and making sure your team has the right skill set and support to go the long haul, to actually embed this change longer term. So we are the trusted partner that really gets it done.
So you're an advisor, you're a strategist, and you're a doer. So who do you work with primarily? What sorts of organizations?
Yeah, it's oftentimes companies that are on the cusp of growth. So they're at that awesome stage of they've gone through, being a startup. They've got a really good idea, a really solid product, and they need to start scaling their operations, their organization, and they need to start building tools, investing in things that will help them get there. And so we come in to help advise on how do I do that effectively and smartly, and also in a simple way. So how do I do this in a way that my organization is ready for right now?
But you not only advise, you also roll up your sleeves.
Exactly. So we're there for the advising, the planning, and the discovery of it all. And we take that then through how do we actually land this change effectively? What's the change management plan? And how are we going to enable your teams to manage this long term? So we don't want to be something that you can't walk away from. We do want to have your team empowered to be able to manage this change long term.
So to distill it down, you're partnering with organizations to drive both growth and execution.
Mhm.
What's the starting point? Where's the way in?
Yeah, it's always with discovery. It's always with assessing the current state. So we do have a programmatic way of assessing where you are and the readiness of your organization to start investing in something like AI, but also just the health of your organization to scale. So we'll build with you, we'll co-create the right way to approach this transformation that needs to happen in order for your team to scale to the level that you need it to. And that could involve a variety of different types of tools. But really, it's about that human element. It's about the organization. So we offer a free call to start the conversation, see how we fit, see how we jive, and whether we'll really be able to help you not just strategize, but also execute.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure, Steve.
What I really appreciated was your sharp, actionable insights. And I'm going to leave a link under this video to the calendar invite for Kristen. You can grab a 15-minute call and learn more about her services. Thank you so much for joining me today for another episode of Distilled. Please do leave us a comment. We'll see you next time for another Distilled session.